Okay. Thank you all for joining us. The Lincoln City Urban Renewal Agency meeting of Monday, August 13th. And for those of you who wish to speak on an agenda item or non-agenda item, please sign the sign-up sheet near the entrance to the door of the council chambers. You will be called to speak during the public comment section. Comments or testimony on agenda items listed under public hearing, public comment will be taken at that time. A roll call, please.
Don Williams.
Here.
Dick Anderson.
Yes.
Riley Hoagland. Deanna Hinton.
Here.
Judy Casper.
Here.
Susan Walke.
Here.
And before I go to the next agenda item, I just want to thank Kate Daschel for sitting in for our city recorder. Thank you. I don't see anyone here to speak.
Allison's checking the sign-up sheet.
Nothing on there. Thank you, Allison. Now for the, we'll move on to the minutes of our
I move to
minutes.
approve the Urban Renewal Agency regular meeting minutes of July 23rd, 2018.
Second.
There's a first or a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd just point out that I wasn't here during that meeting, but I took the liberty of watching and enjoying the video and audio of that meeting, so I am going to be voting on the minutes.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. All right. There are no items in special order of business or presentation, so we'll move on to the next agenda items. And this is a public hearing resolution. There are no items under public hearings or resolutions. Or is there? Yes, there is. Too fast. We have a resolution for a construction contract award to the Cutler City Highway 101 sidewalk section between Southwest 62nd and Southwest 63rd Streets.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I have an actual conflict of interest concerning awarding a contract for the sidewalk section between Southwest 62nd and 63rd Street improvements, since my son-in-law is an employee of the sole bidder, RK Concrete Construction. I will recuse myself from participation in the discussion of this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Is there a presentation or anything?
Good evening. So I'll just quickly talk about, this is a very straightforward sidewalk project in the Cutler City District on Highway 101, which will fill a sidewalk section between Southwest 62nd and 63rd Streets. And there are several ways that Urban Renewal does projects, and in one way it is to provide funding to Public Works in order to move one of their projects forward. And so this is one of those projects where we're just basically funding it, but they are doing the design, permitting, bidding, and construction. So this is really a Public Works project where Urban Renewal is providing the funding. And there was one bid that was received to RK Concrete Construction, and you should have a staff report. The total requested with contingency is $136,456.18, which is in your resolution, which is there before you tonight. Are there any questions about the project?
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Anderson?
I do. Alison, I was looking through the actual bid itself, and this may be a question for Lila, but I noticed that our estimate and I appreciate the way this is spread out, the engineer's estimate and then the actual bid that came in. I'm curious if we're making adjustments for the future from our engineer's estimating book, because I noticed we were off by some $20,000 or 16% of the total bid in areas, and I'm more worried about a engineer's book, and I know that's where we go to try to estimate some of this stuff for our own future projects. And are any adjustments being made for that?
Yeah, it's tough because it's a moving target. I think that this was done maybe in April, May, I think. Maybe Lila can talk about that. This is a project that we've been trying to get permitted for a while, so.
So what our engineers do, they look back at previous bids, so they don't really have an estimate of their, they have an estimate of their own, but then they also look at bidding histories, and so that's how we come up with our numbers. But this one has been there for quite a while. We waited almost, I think, about a year for the ODOT permit to be completed. And then it also depends on the bidding environment and how busy the contractors are.
But it just going down, some of these, they're,
Right.
paint on the street, for example, what was the one, starting from the bottom, just look at our estimate total and the total from the project. Topsoil, we estimate $500 and they come in with $1,900. Am I reading that right?
Yes, sure.
And then, you start
Yeah,
moving.
there's one clearing and grubbing, we had 2,000 and they had 12, so that one's definitely.
Yeah, and it didn't seem where this is just nothing's just, I understand, I'm sorry to use that, but a sidewalk. I was looking at some of these kind of things and I was just really surprised at the differential, and that's really all my concern is whatever we're using as an index seems to be lagging considerably.
We'll have to,
And we're lucky on this one because we've got plenty budgeted and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But future, and I just thought it was a classic to pull out and raise the question of
Right.
where we're drawing from our estimates.
right, and, some of ours are higher and theirs are lower, like on the asphalt driveway transitions. We had 5,560 and they have 1,851, so. But we'll look at those harder.
But at the end of the day, it's 16% of the bid, though, that our estimate was off.
Right.
And that could.
We'll work on that.
Mr. Chairman, one other, Allison, while you're there, could you help us understand, us being me and the public, this is a sidewalk in front of not publicly owned property. Urban Renewal is paying for it. If it was in a residential area, the owner would pay for the sidewalk.
Yeah, well, and we have built sidewalks in residential areas that we have paid for. I mean, urban renewal is to build sidewalks in the areas where the projects have come forward as a priority, and consensus is to have a sidewalk here, and it's part of a community vision. So as part of the 2008 community vision, the intention was to create sidewalks all along the west side of the highway and leave the east side of the highway what we call a more rural edge. People are not walking on the east side until there are businesses, which are more at the north end of the Cutler City commercial district along the highway. And so this was really just finishing that gap
Right.
in the public sidewalk that happens to be in front of one business. So
So there is a difference between, there's not, I'm trying to help the public understand if someday we insist on sidewalks in front of their property, And we've looked at that, and they get a bill. And in this case, the business owner is not getting a bill or shared. It's because of,
A larger public improvement project that came out of a community vision.
good,
Mhm.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could just piggyback on the question about the cost for or the estimates on the sidewalk. Are we still within the framework of a general guideline, I mean, per square foot, or how are you measuring
Yes.
sidewalks? Is it per
Yes.
square foot? So we're still within that, what we still think is a reasonable amount? We're not, nothing's
Yes.
changed drastically, whether it's their bid or another bid, but we're still saying, look, it shouldn't cost more than, give me a number,
1,500 a foot. or-
1,500 a foot. We're still within that, and that seems a reasonable estimate?
It does. I mean, there's a few variations in here, so we'll work on those, but, yeah, it's still
Yeah,
within
because
reason.
I know, and for me, and absolutely, I don't mean anything other than, I know that we've seen this on many other projects, is, dirt will cost one guy this much, and this will cost this much, but then at the end, it's still the same number, whoever comes, give or take. And I just want to know if we're still on track with that overall square footage cost or per foot cost.
And we might
Anything
be,
changed drastically that I don't know about?
no, other than, the person that's bidding it might have the soil available to them at, like you mentioned, at a lower price.
Right, but if we're talking 15 per foot, and someone came in at 25, we'd go, I'm sorry, that's not
Oh.
even close, or if they came in at 12, we'd wonder why.
Exactly. And, we don't have to accept those bids.
Right, I just want to know, because
So we look
I'm not a
at it.
contractor, and so when I see these things come forward, I just kind of have to go, it's like construction. I know, okay, this is a general cost per square foot of a building, and this, that, and the other, and so that's all I'm really asking. is
And
we're
some
still-
contractors just might get a better price, because they buy more pipe, or, some of the bigger companies get better prices on,
Okay,
so.
thanks.
Was there any reason, or any concern about just one bidder? I see other
Well-
local concrete,
They're within the price range enough that I would, if it was,
so
if
again,
it was so much more, we'd probably rebid the job.
so there isn't a concern with only one bidder?
No.
Madam Chair, in
Yes,
this
sir.
case, because of some extenuating circumstances, no, it is not a concern where it would be had it not been for some other extenuating circumstances.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions of staff? I just have a comment. I want to thank both the Urban Renewal and Public Works for working together on this and many other projects. Makes for a good project. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to?
Madam Chair, I move to approve Resolution UR 2018-04, a resolution of the Urban Renewal Agency of Lincoln City approving an award bid from RK Concrete Construction for the construction services for the Cutler District Highway 101 sidewalks section from Southwest 62nd to Southwest 63rd Streets.
Second? Anybody?
Second?
Thank you. Discussion? Roll call, please, Kate.
All right. Anderson,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Casper,
Yes.
and Hinton.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Ms. Wolke is on her way back to join us. All right. The next resolution that we have on our agenda is Resolution UR 2018-04, a resolution of the Urban Renewal Agency of Lincoln City approving.
That's the one we just,
Oh, so, yes, I see that. Sorry about that. I saw it as a separate item.
This is, we had the
We-
same issue with our council agendas, and it's a work of our program that I feel strongly needs to be changed. This number 2 was the discussion, and number 3 is the resolution.
It does list them separately.
Yeah.
Normally, we see that happening, Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go, fine.
Normally, we see that happening when we have a public hearing that's associated with it, and it needs to list the public hearing separately, and then it lists the resolution. For a reason I'm not sure of at this point, it did that same thing under resolutions. These should have just simply been one agenda item, and I'll look in to see if we can correct that.
Yeah, thank you. That was quite confusing. I thought we had 2 separate things. Well, thank you. And our next agenda item is actions, if any, based on executive session or work session. We had neither of those, and so now we're moved on to agency member comments, if there are any from the agency members.
Madam Chair? I believe it was our last Urban Renewal Agency meeting that we granted money to the Small Business Development Center for their support of small businesses in the Urban Renewal District. And that's been such a well-received and successful program that the city of Walport is considering adopting the same sort of program. And I thought that was
Wow,
a compliment to our program.
I think so. Thank you for the good news. Any other comments? And thank you all for attending, and we are adjourned.
5:47.
Well, mics are off.